So the first thing that shows his human side is in the scene where he goes into his son in the room where he's sleeping next to the fireplace and just lays next to him and then picks him up and carries him to his bed. And that is what a typical father would do, what president or not. The second event that shows his human side is when he is putting his own firewood in his fire, which I think is a very small detail and that most people wouldn't catch, but I would think that, you know, if you're president, that you don't have to do that yourself, but yet he wants to and he does, and so that is what the rest of us would do. Colin is asking the guy if like what happened to him as he was a slave, and the guy comes back saying that he was never a slave, but you know, and then the maid walks in and the guy asks or tells the son to ask her, and the son goes and asks her, and Lincoln basically just says no, like that's not gonna happen. And I think that's really cool that he did that because he doesn't want her like embarrassed or telling her past because it was probably hurtful.
Did you come? Mrs. Keckley was a slave. Ask her if she was beaten.
Were you?
Dad?
I was beaten with a fire shot.
The final thing that Lincoln does to show his human side while being president is when he goes and visits the soldiers that are hurt, and he's shaking their hand and says, "Tell me your names as you go by, I want to know who I'm talking with." And I think he's just trying to get on a personal level.
Hello, Mr. President.
Good to see you again. Well, boys, first question. You getting enough to eat?
You, sir?
What's your name, soldier?
Robert.
Robert. Good to meet you, Robert.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Kevin.
Tell me your names to go past and to know who I'm talking to. Kevin.
Mr. President, John.
John.
I think this scene shows his presidential role because it kind of shows that he can be diverse and that he can just joke around, but yet he can be serious too. And when he talks to the first group of guys, they're just really casual and they're just joking around and not caring. And then the second group of guys comes and they're like trying to impress him, and just because they just started in the war. So President Lincoln has a goal, and his goal is to get the 13th Amendment signed and passed. And the 13th Amendment is no slavery, and just to free the slaves and give them freedom. And I think as the president, you need to have a goal, and I like that he does have a goal and that he states it and that he's working hard and doing everything he can to make sure it passes. President Lincoln's son had just come home from school, and his son said hello to his mother and then was going to go say hello to his dad, which is President Lincoln. And President Lincoln is talking to somebody and he yells at his son, saying, "Not now." And at the time he didn't know it was his son, and his son comes in anyways. And President Lincoln is just like, you know, "Hey son, how you doing? Nice to see ya. Give us a moment. I'll talk to you later." And I feel that he puts his presidential side in front of his father's side, and that this definitely shows his presidential side. So President Lincoln is two things. He is the president and he is also a husband. And him and his wife are talking about their son, and how he wants to go into the military, and that Lincoln's wife does not want him to, and she and him are having a conversation, and then someone comes and knocks on the door, and she just tells them to go away and that they're talking, and Lincoln opens the door and then goes with the man to go work. And I feel that he took the presidential side of this instead of the husband side and sitting there and talking. So President Lincoln has the goal of the 13th Amendment to get it passed and signed, and so when it does, it's just a huge accomplishment. I think that is definitely showing his presidential side, that like all the hard work that he did and everything that he did up to that point was worth it, and getting that passed definitely shows his presidential side. President Lincoln and a bunch of his men are outside of Petersburg, Virginia, and they're on their horses and just riding around this area and just looking at all the dead bodies. And I think President Lincoln does this one thing that actually really just like, it was really unique to see him do that, and I was really happy that he did do that, and that was he took off his hat. So he took off his hat and then just kind of like looked down with it and just kind of stopped for a second and then put it back on. And as he looked down, he was looking at this these bodies, and he was pretty much just telling them he was appreciating their service. The first thing I learned in the movie is that when the 13th Amendment was going to be passed or not, so during the vote, that Abraham Lincoln wasn't actually there. And I always thought that, he was there and he was the one in charge of it, but he was actually at home and really had no idea what was going on. So, and the second thing that I learned while watching this movie is that when President Lincoln was shot, his son was at another theater, and when the guy ran out on stage, that's how the son found out that his dad had just been shot. And I just thought, his son was at home and that somebody told him that way, but for him to find out in public with everybody else, and just, I couldn't imagine.
Please call my name. I want to cast a vote.
I object. The Speaker doesn't vote.
The Speaker may vote if he so chooses.
It is highly unusual, sir.
This isn't usual, Mr. Pendleton. This is history.
How does Mr. Schuyler Colfax vote?
Aye, of course.
I personally like this part because the Speaker has just seen everything and has seen both sides of the issue, and he wants to vote, and it's not a typical thing. And one of the guys who is against says, no, you can't do this, I oppose. And the Speaker just looks at him and says that I can if I want to. And he says that this is a special occasion and that we are making history, and that he wants to be a part of it other than just reading it off, and he wants to have a say in it. So that probably would be why that's my favorite part. People today still like Lincoln because he was the leader of our country through a really hard time, and that one of his main goals was to pass the 13th Amendment. And because it did pass when he was president, it gives him a lot of credit for it. And I think the main reason why it is such a huge thing, other than just passing it, is that everybody, even his, family and friends, told him to not worry about it, and this is going to be too hard and everybody's going to vote no. And he didn't care, and he just wanted to get this passed, and I think that really shows that he was a really good leader and that he fought for what he wanted. And I personally believe that if he gave in and just kind of said, no, this is too hard, that people today wouldn't respect him and just wouldn't look up to him and wouldn't like him if he did do that. So I am glad to say that I like him also because of what he did and that how hard he fought for it. I would give the movie Lincoln a 7 out of 10, and that's because I enjoy history, but I enjoy history with an actual show in it, and that kind of keeps me in tune. And for me, this movie was a lot more historical, and I did enjoy learning about Lincoln because I didn't know that much about him. But that's just not my type of movie. But I still enjoyed the movie.
On ourselves and with all nations.